And
Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to
Something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nickel Matata, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to something else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Aria.
degenerates and reprobates, welcome to episode number 198 of Something Else. Feast your ear holes in this week's episode as we take a look at NWA Total Nonstop Action, episode number 48 from June 4th, 2003. My name is Aria, and joining me as always is the Matt Striker with a Y to my Matt Striker with an I. It's Cindy. Cindy, how are you today?
How did I get this Cro-Magnon unibrow?
Well, that's why you get like the earbrow pluckers and pluck that hair in there. Or just like, take the end of an electric razor and just like shave in between there.
That's what I usually do.
Or also be like me and have fair blonde hair, so it also hides behind your glasses, so you don't ever have to pluck or trim your eyebrows.
I'll just spend
I don't know if
$30 to get my eyebrows done at the parlor.
I've never paid to have anything done to my eyebrows because, like I said, they're hiding behind my glasses, so it's like you can't even see them. Unless you're sleeping with me, and my boyfriend seems to not mind my eyebrows, or if he does, he's been a sweetheart and not said anything. So we are, not only like, and I guess like we're gonna point out the obvious here. So not only are we approaching the end of the first year of TNA, we are approaching the anniversary of you and I doing this podcast.
1 year we've watched this show. We've done more episodes than TNA.
Huh?
So far.
How have we done more episodes than TNA?
Because we did episodes on September 4th and September 11th. We did the best damn shows.
Okay. I wasn't sure you were going with that one, but okay. So yeah, somehow we've done this a year and not managed to kill each other or go to, where does Russo live? Does he still live in Indiana or is he in Colorado again?
Don't know, don't care.
Yeah, we have yet to go to Colorado or Indiana and threaten to murder Vince Russo. And the funny thing is, though, we have actually been doing the show over a year because, like, I don't know if you remember, but before we started the show, we recorded like 3 or 4 episodes in advance. So technically, we've been doing this over a year. It's just, we're at it hasn't started posting until June 19th. But anyway, let's get into the start of this week's show here. Well, before we do that, we'd like to tell you what is happening in the world of wrestling, at least in regards to TNA. And we dive into the Wrestling Observer newsletter, where this week the news is that the original plans for the 1 year anniversary show was a 3-way match with Jeff Jarrett, Raven, and Glen Gilbertti. Basically what would happen is this show would happen, and then next week the main event would be Glen Gilbertti versus Raven versus AJ Styles in a number 1 contenders match, and there'd be some sort of shenanigans where you'd end up with 2 challengers instead of 1. And that's what the plan was for June 18th. But as of right now, there is no concrete plan for the main event of the 1 year anniversary show. Elsewhere, Just Incredible was originally supposed to do the guest commentary spot that we're going to get to that Mike Sanders does, but he didn't make it to the show due to a family illness. And because of that, Jerry Lynn, who, if you recall, last week got into that fight with Just Incredible, Jerry Lynn was pulled from the show and put on a match for Explosion because, he was here purely to advance the storyline with Justin, and he wasn't here to do that. And then in the business part of today, the crowd for this show that's been built up I mean, they didn't give us an official date until like 2 weeks ago, but this is the culmination of a 3 month angle. This has been built up specifically for the last 5 weeks with Glen Gilbertti getting a world title match. And this show did no better business than the average TNA show. The crowd was around 1,000 people and was about 2/3 paper. Um, and which was disappointing for TNA because typically with the other NWA title matches, even if they aren't popping a Raven-like buy rate, the other NWA title matches have at least had better than average business, and this one did not. And so people are finally figuring out that the main event push of Glen Gilbertti was not a good fucking idea. And I part of me it's like, and I can't imagine anybody would care enough to ask either of these people that, but Vince Russo and Glen Gilbertti are the writers of the show. Whose idea do you think it was for Glen Gilbertti to get the main event push and eventually a world title match?
Probably Glen's.
I imagine even if it was, it didn't take much convincing. But at the end of the day, too, it's like this is TNA. We're trying, like, and I get they don't have the biggest roster. So you want to have different world title matches without going back to the same thing over and over again. So I could even understand 1 week out of the blue saying, hey, this week Jeff Jarrett's going to defend the belt against Glen Gilbertti. It's like, okay, it's not setting the business on fire, but it's like, hey, 1 week we're going to randomly do this match. We didn't need fucking 3 months of build to get to this match. You know, just
He tried
just
to build
saying.
up Gilbertti to be like a credible threat. I mean, Gilbertti probably had the motivation skills to get everybody in sex behind him, and we'll find out how that happens. Um, so we start the show.
Well, we start the show with the best 5 minutes of the week, usually. The video package recapping last week's show. And now the pedantic part of me will point out that it's not 5 minutes, it's like 2.5 minutes, but I'm rounding off people. But now go to the start of the show.
So Jared is greeted by what is going to be one of the worst parts of TNA in future months, the red shirt security. They're brought in because Jarrett went on a psycho path of rage over the past couple of weeks. He bristles at it, says, I'm here to destroy Glen Gilbertti, and that's what I'm going to do. Speaking of Glen Gilbertti, I didn't know prayer was allowed in the sex locker room.
I think this is hell. This might be the reason for the finish in the main event, but this is before Russo becomes born again.
Yeah.
There's no separation between sex and church, apparently.
Unless it's done
So
by,
yeah,
unless it's adjudicated by Reverend Jim Mitchell of the New Church.
yes, that's allowed. But main event, Glen Gilbertti led the group in a prayer, thanking God for sending Vince Russo back to them, which is finally proof that God does not exist. Afterwards, Mike Sanders said that Russo would have reached out to him if there was anything to say. Gilbertti said that he's been talking to Russo all week and it's in the bag.
His
I
look
mean,
says otherwise.
it was what it was. Now, I think I made this reference. I made this reference on one of these shows the last 2 weeks. So it may have been this show, or maybe on the Tuesday or Thursday shows. But what uh, what this was thinking of with the red shirts when they were talking about what a psycho Jeff Jarrett was that scene in Family Guy where Meg Griffin was in love with Brian, and Brian let her down and he says that she was a psycho bitch, and they had the guy in the green circle screaming it for people who are deaf, screaming, "You're acting like a psycho bitch." That would have worked here, even though I think this was before that moment on Family Guy. And we know Vince Russo has no original ideas because if you think he has an original idea, you just watch like an obscure movie from the 70s and it's like, oh, that's where that's from. Um, but yeah, so that was the opener or the opening scene. And I mean, we'll get to it later, but like again, Jeff Jarrett is not even sweating the whole I'm defending the world title against Disco Inferno thing, as we talked about last week. So
Yep.
we go to the first match, and I'm going to tell you who all the participants are, and then I'm going to tell you how I spent the first 5 minutes of this match. It's Kid Romeo, Damien Dothar, and Johnny Swinger versus CM Punk, the other Matt Striker, and Frankie Kazarian in his TNA debut. Now, for those of you who don't remember and also ignored the first 5 minutes of the show this week, there were two Matt Strikers in indie wrestling. No one really knows why, because they were at the same time. So you think one of them would just say fuck it and change their name. But this is not the former New York City school teacher who ended up in WWE. This is Matt Striker, unibrow Matt Striker with a Y. And alert the Mizarks, Swinger is back after his one appearance. Maybe he did two, but I remember they did that one appearance last year after Jerry Jarrett was complaining about how bad the tag division was. And they brought in Swinger and Simon. They brought in Christian York and Joey Matthews. And neither team were here longer than a week or two. And Kazarian, now I kind of liked this. I kind of like the subtlety of this, which you'll never hear me say this about a Vince Russo book show ever. But I like the subtlety because Frankie Kazarian, his nickname is the Future. And they say Chris Sabin, his nickname is also the Future. So it's like, And we just ... that and keep it in the back of your head for down the road. We'll call that a small, teeny tiny victory for something that Vince Russo is booking, even if it's not really anything that was due to him.
It was a
So
happy accident, we'll say.
Yeah. As the match got going, Tenay paid tribute to the recently deceased Classy Freddie Blassie. And then I spent the first 5 minutes of this match trying to figure out what Damien's last name was. Because the match graphic, when they came out to the ring, just listed him as Damien. And then Borash was kind of muted when he said it. And then Tenay and West were like, are they saying Goth Heart? Like, I could not figure out what the hell they were saying. And I checked 4 different websites before I just went to Cage Match, which I should have done at the beginning, but I was trying to avoid figuring out who won this match before I found out who won this match. But it's Dothar, Dothar, for those who are curious.
And just to let everybody know, as a little bit of a spoiler alert, Damien Dothar does not have a Cage Match page.
Yeah,
they have pages for obscure people. Dothar doesn't have one.
He may as well be one of our Mid-South jobbers, because seemingly half the Mid-South jobbers don't have a Cage Match profile. And this may be a spoiler. I am not expecting him back. Now, he's, according to Tenay and West, he's a 3-year veteran and trained by Dusty Rhodes. So he came from the same area as Sonny Siaki and Desire and all that. He's pretty green. And I mean, it's kind of hidden here because he's in with, I mean, we're not saying this is the cream of the crop of 2003 indie wrestling at this point, but these are 5 pretty good wrestlers here right now. So he's able to hide a little bit in this. This match, honestly, this was not like, this was kind of an X Division 6-man tag over the show. But if you're picturing an X Division 6-man tag, this wasn't that match. Team Swinger was the heel by default, but it was more like no one was really a babyface or a heel. It was just like 2 teams of 3 that all were doing stuff. But the closest you could say that anybody got the heat was they were briefly working over Striker, which I don't know if that even counts, but it's about as close to heat as we were getting on this match. Kazarian broke out the first dive of the match with a tope suicida, which of course leads to the dive sequence. And CM Punk, of all people, did a springboard crossbody to the floor. I was not expecting that one either. Kid Romeo went for a Somerset dive. but did not flip over and basically did a diving headbutt to everybody. Stryker had a gorgeous acai moonsault. Like that was a smooth one, and he did it off the top rope too. And then we get the finish of every multi-man match you'll ever see, even though this was a six-man tag. Everyone hits a big move on everyone else, and eventually Kazarian hit the last big move as he hits an STO on Dothar, which is called the Wave of the Future, for the win. And I wrote, oh, look, a good X Division match to start the show. As always, it's better to start the show with good shit than bad shit. And at the end of the day, again, you may think differently. I thought this was the best match on the show. I gave it a 6.0 out of 10.
I don't disagree with you there. I thought it was a really good match. Liked it a little better than you did. I gave it 7 out of 10. By the way, spoiler alert, Dothar's gone. No shock there. Stryker will appear a couple more times. Everybody sticks around or goes away but comes back during the Impact era.
Yeah. Punk is here for like the next year until he gets into a fight with Teddy Hart. And that's where that goes. So Goldilocks is with Raven outside. She asks what he's going to do to Vince Russo. So Raven talked about Jarrett setting up a #1 contenders match with AJ Styles and D'Lo Brown. He calls Jarrett the David Hasselhoff of pro wrestling. Neither have talent or charisma, but both of them found themselves on 2 hit television programs. At this point, Raven, it proves that he is the only person on this fucking show with a brain. Because when he said Jeff Jarrett was on 2 hit TV shows, he didn't say he was on Raw and Nitro. He said that Jeff Jarrett was a star on 2 hit shows, WCW and TNA. He's the first fucking person to put over that the people on this show are stars, and it's a big deal to be a star on this show. At this point, I was curious how the hell that even got aired, because that goes against all TNA logic to ever put over TNA. But Raven threatened to rip Russo's face off and use his cranium as a flower pot.
I have noted here, Arya will hope that he does. Sadly, Russo's still alive.
I mean, maybe you can live despite having your head turned into a flower pot. I don't know.
No, we saw something like that with that. What was the first movie that Mike Nelson did on MSD3K?
I've got no idea.
Anyway, Storm is in the locker room with Harris. Your typical, hey, whose side are you on promo? Harris
Yes,
will make his decision, whether it be him or Chris Sabin.
And I shouldn't. Chris Harris has had 7 days to make his decision, but he needs 7 days and 20 minutes.
And then we get the Hard 10 tournament match of the week. It's Sonny Siaki. He comes to the ring and says he's tired of being a pretty boy. He wants to prove he's hardcore. Sandman comes out, but out come the red shirts to spoil all the fun. And then
Or did they?
Vampire Warrior, a.k.a. Gangrel. Huh? Like, he was an ECW for a cup of coffee, but that's about it.
Well, Sonny Siaki wasn't exactly a hardcore legend himself. But so Sandman, whatchamacallit, the Sandman comes out, the red shirt security usher him away, but they do such a shitty job, and we'll talk about next week too how shitty these people are. But they do such a shitty job that they just walk to the back, and Sandman walks into the crowd. So, yeah. Somehow they did not give a fuck when the drunk guy started walking through the fans. Now, Gangrel, and we're going to talk about this more next week, but Gangrel brought in for the Hard 10 tournament a hardcore match where you get points for hitting people with weapons or putting through the tables, and you have to win with 10 points. Gangrel went for a cover and got visibly frustrated when he realized, oh yeah, that's not the rules of this stupid match. Um, so honestly, like at the finish, saw Siaki and they're putting Vampire Warriors through two tables. One with a Siacalypse. I'm sorry. One was Vampire Warrior was standing on the ropes holding a trash can lid, and Siaki hit the trash can lid, which bounced off off Vampire Warrior's face, which got him a point, and then Vampire Warrior fell through the table, which ended up being a 6-point move. And then Siaki gave him a Siacalypse off the apron through another table for another 5 points, giving him a 12-5 win. After the match, Sandman finally made it through the crowd and caned Siaki. And I can't keep saying this, and I mean, to think this is not what I'm calling the worst tournament in wrestling, but nothing about these matches has made me want to see any more of them. Siaki wins 2.0 out of 10.
Gave it a 2.0 as well. I think this is the worst hard 10 match ever. I'm not counting Duck Cup.
I've given them all like 1.0s and 2.0s, so it's hard to really tell you one is much better or worse than the others.
Well, the thing is, at least the last two matches, they actually had some sort of semblance of the rules. Vampire Warrior or Gangrel and what we'll see next week didn't. So we get a sit down with Raven.
Yes, because
by
remember
the way,
when Raven
hey, guess what? Remember that good thing you said about Raven? About how he mentions how TNA has his talent and all that stuff? Throw it out the window because we have a shoot style promo. He says his feuds with Sam Andrew were the best feuds of the world, ECW. They mentioned the WCW, WWF. But he turns it all around and talks about TNA instead.
So why did we need two Raven promos, especially 10 minutes apart from each other? This was the first promo just inside earlier today, and he was sitting down with Mike Tenay instead of standing up with Goldilocks.
Man, I guess really having credible no-show really threw off the planned matches, didn't it? Because how much you want to bet
Lord.
This would have been the Just Incredible Jerry Lynn spot?
I think the first one would have been, because I doubt they would have given them more than 90 seconds. I think it would have been a random outside the arena brawl, and like, oh my God, this is crazy. Let's go to the back. So then at this point, we're just going to throw away any, semblance of subtlety. Don Harris is backstage with Goldilocks, and he flat out says he's not teaming with Ron Killings because he's not going to team with those kind of people. And it was very obvious what he meant by those kind of people. Because welcome to TNA. And now, like, I guess here we're gonna. I'm not giving a fucking credit because they shouldn't have done this stupid fucking angle. But we did complain last week about how, or last week or the week before, about how it's never been part of the Harris brothers' character that they're racist. Well, it's been determined that instead of just not having them do a racist gimmick, we're going to just throw away all pretense and just have them be openly racist. And let's see here. So Elix Skipper, who, if you recall, is not only part of SEX, he's also black, was standing right there and was offended by this. So Ron Harris stepped in and said they weren't talking about him being black. They were talking about Ron Killings playing the race card. They hate when people play the race card. What fucking ever.
I think Skipper thought better of it. I mean, I'm pretty sure Skipper could take out one Harris brother, but both of them were there. I don't think he could have taken both of them out. So we have Match 3, David Young and Tracy.
Let me do this because this is where I lost my shit. So we go from
Just know
that
we're under a
shitty.
time crunch.
Yes, I know. We go from that shitty segment to this shitty segment. David Young and Tracy Brooks with Desire versus Don Harris and Ron Killings in the Asylum Alliance tournament. I can't watch this shit. Don didn't come out to team with Ron, which confused Borash, who apparently didn't watch the pre-match promo on the big screen. Don West continues to prove he's the smartest person in the promotion. He pointed out that this tournament was a failure because the participants don't care about the prize for winning. With those words by the announcer, who is not a heel, by the way, this is not 2009 Don West who turned heel. This is still babyface Don West. With those words by this announcer, I officially give up on the hard on not the hard 10 tournament, on the Asylum Alliance tournament. I am done talking about it. I will tell you the finish of the match for the sake of historical purposes, but I officially give up. I will not pay attention to these matches. I will not notate anything about them. All you need to know here, David Young pinned Ron Killings with a spine buster to advance after interference by Nurse Veronica. So Ron Killings, who the last time in the first round basically won a 3-on-1 handicap match against Don Harris, New Jack, and Shark Boy, who were all teaming up to try to beat him. This time got defeated by a woman interfering with a low blow. And by the way, Ron Killings, when he walked out, you could tell by the look in his face that like he was fucking pissed by this stupid ass booking. But anyway, I'm done with this fucking tournament. Do you have anything you want to say about this match?
It was a thing, I guess. I mean, at least Tracy did stuff. But not too thrilled about the bullshit ending. I mean, you could have had, Tracy maybe grab a chair or something instead of the Nurse Veronica stuff. But whatever. 3 out of 10, I guess.
I'm not even rating these matches. To me, it's like they don't even exist.
All right, so
we then go to Goldilocks
no,
backstage.
no. I'll take the. There's one more spot after this. So after the win, Tracy jumps all over David Young, and we have a cat fight. David Young solidifies his heel status by helping the ref break it up. Thanks. So Goldie's now with Jeff Jarrett. Have fun with this.
So, I just want to note, and I'm trying to see, Desire doesn't appear on the rest of the show, right?
Right.
So this is the end of Desire. We'll talk about it next week. But next week she does a match on Explosion and breaks her neck and one of her vertebrae in her back, and I'm pretty sure that's it for her. I could be wrong, but I know she ends after an injury on a TNA Explosion match. So if she comes back and gets injured badly again. But yeah, so this could be it for Desire. She may come back and get injured again, or this could be it for her entirely. But I guess we'll see. But yeah, so I'd say thoughts out to Desire, but I mean, it's been 22 years. I'm hoping that she's recovered by now. All right, so Jeff Jarrett promo. Jeff Jarrett, for what feels like the first time in a month, mentions the name of his opponent in the world title match tonight. Jarrett said it would be a slap in the face to everyone if Gilbertti won the title and an absolute disgrace. He leaves. In walks fucking Eric Watts, who yanks Goldilocks' hair. Goldie said that last week when Goldilocks disappeared after she and Eric agreed to go have sex, that Goldie was locked in a closet, and then Watts pulled out a fragile tag and put it on her. And then Watts said he'd keep having sex with her, and she said that was it. I somehow forgot this segment because the segment later and the segment next week is just so fucking bad. But yeah.
We get a nice little piece of I'm not giving a damn about the that segment with Eric and Goldie. He usually has a good smooth operator gimmick, but it didn't work here. Um, Maybe he turns it around. So we get a neat little package of Triple X as a tag team. I mean, can't get enough Triple X hype promos.
Okay. And then to the shock of nobody, especially those who follow Vince Russo's booking and know that everything's a swerve, after Chris Harris teased that he was breaking up with James Storm and he's going to team with Chris Sabin, he brings out Sabin and Storm to inform them that he's going to keep teaming with James Storm. And then Chris Harris and James Storm defeated BG James and Conan in the worst tournament ever semifinal match. Any thoughts on this one?
At least it was a good, solid match. I mean, the match itself. I mean, it was what, second year, but I mean, this is a match we're going to see again, just in better circumstances.
By the
And,
way, at the end of the day, this could have been the match in the finals. I know we
yeah,
discussed, and I'll rant and rave next week about this, that we discussed that they could have done the tournament and had AMW versus AJ and D'Lo in the finals, and had a good tournament, but we couldn't have that. Even if we want to do this stupid bullshit, we could have had a legitimate final match. You know, instead, and as you could, if you're paying attention, and I can't imagine why you would with this stupid tournament, the finals are America's Most Wanted versus David Young and Tracy Brooks. I don't think I have to tell you who wins that fucking match, but we'll talk about that next week.
so the ending kind of continues the Conan Truth storyline that's going on. So the Harris boys come out and lay out Conan with the H bomb out of revenge for Truth and Conan ambushing them in the parking lot last week. Out of all of the Anarchy Alliance tournament matches, this is the best one. But that's not saying much. 5 out of 10.
I don't know that. Who did Harrison Sabin wrestle last week? Wasn't that just Incredible and Jerry Lynn?
It was credible in Lynn.
Okay, that was the only time this entire tournament where I'm like, okay, this is at least moderately enjoyable. Um, anyway, stop talking about things that are moderately enjoyable because then we get this segment. Goldilocks is in the ring to interview Kid Cash, who dragged Trinity out with her. Now, have you ever heard a Vince Russo interview, especially around this time, and you ask him about, you know, why he books certain things or what the hell's his mindset when he books things? His logic, and he said this in defense of the David Arquette thing, he said this in defense of other things. It's like, if this was real, bro, this conceivably could have happened, which, okay, fine. If this is real, bro, David Arquette could have pinned Eric Bischoff in a tag team match to win. Fine. If this is real, bro, how explain to me why Trinity keeps coming to the arena and how Trinity keeps coming to the arena. Because I don't remember where they ever announced Kid Cash is hailing from, but Kid Cash is either from Nashville or he's from West Virginia, and Trinity is from New York. They are not driving in together. It requires, even if they meet somewhere in the middle to take a connecting flight, it requires Trinity to willingly go to the show and meet Kid Cash here where he's abusively dragging her around. So at what point when she arrives at the arena, when she arrives at the hotel, does Kid Cash show up and start dragging her around the hotel? And what would happen in real life if that were to happen, bro? Like,
It's Tennessee, so nothing.
no. Even the most incompetent backwoods hillbilly, state in the union, and I'm thinking Arkansas, but Tennessee's pretty damn close to it. If you're seeing a man dragging a woman into a hotel and she's screaming and kicking and, she's being forced against her will, even the dumbest fucking front desk clerk would call the police. Um, so anyway, let's see here. Kid Cash says that because Trinity interfered in the match, that he is still the X Division champion. Now, mind you, he apparently didn't care that anybody else interfered in the match, just that it turned out it was Trinity, so the title should be returned to him. Using this logic, Ken Shamrock should be retroactively returned the world title because every fucking world title match has interference in it, which we'll get to. Um, then let me see here. Then Cash told her to kiss his ass for forgiveness. Literally, not figuratively. We're talking about literal ass kissing. When she refused, we had spousal abuse as Kid Cash grabbed her by the throat. Now, Kid Cash is like, I don't know, like 170, 180 pounds. He's in shape. He's a very muscular man. And while Trinity is obviously in shape, she's obviously a little muscular. And it's like Kid Cash is overpowering Trinity. So you're like, okay, this is going to lead to a man come out and attack Kid Cash and save Trinity. And we're going to like segue Kid Cash into a big feud here. And a man does come out. However, that is not step one of this. Um, Kid Cash has grabbed Trinity by the throat and is choking her. And who makes the save for Trinity? Goldilocks, the ring announcer, who overpowers Kid Cash and rips him off of Trinity. Kid Cash proceeds to call them lesbians, and considering, like, wasn't Goldilocks in a lesbian relationship with April, Brian Lawler's girlfriend, a year ago?
It was
Um,
insinuated.
yes. They walked off holding hands, and you're supposed to lead to go from there. But Goldilocks said that Trinity would rather have gay sex, so Cash slapped her. And considering he was just choking at Trinity a minute ago, no one cared that he slapped Trinity because or Goldilocks. That should be a big fucking angle that you slapped a woman. Honky Tonk Man threw down Elizabeth and became a top heel. Jake the Snake Roberts slapped Elizabeth, and that made him an even bigger scumbag than he already was. Kid Cash slapped Goldilocks, and this was forgotten in 30 seconds. Eric Watts ran out, gave Kid Cash a power bomb, and then slammed Kid Cash's head into a chair. So Cash folded it up and threw it at Watts' face. In the ring, Goldilocks, who was just the person who was kicking ass, hid behind Trinity just long enough for Watts to get up and give Cash a choke slam and a buckle bomb. Does the dipshit writing the show realize you could have just had Eric Watts run out for the save when he was assaulting Trinity?
Bro, we got a
Like,
bad time, bro. Plus, we got to get Goldilocks over, bro.
at a time, like AJ Styles and D'Lo Brown, spoiler, that's coming up, that goes 9 minutes. You want a pad time? You could have given them 15 minutes. It would have been so much fucking better. But yeah, so we waste what's essentially a hardcore angle for something that is forgotten 5 minutes later. And not that it matters because women get assaulted on this show literally all the fucking time. Like there's a reason, like, there was like Spike TV, made a rule in 2007 that there could be no more man on woman violence because that is Russo's go-to thing, that men have to constantly be beating up women on the show. Like it's like he remembers the same two angles I remember and most people remember with Elizabeth, but then it's like, okay, if we do that every week, somebody will get as over as Honky Tonk Man and Jake Roberts. It's like, motherfucker, A, it doesn't get over when everybody fucking does it, and B, it doesn't get over when you ignore it and never bring it up again. Not everybody is me and has a fucking eidetic memory that remembers every fucking thing that ever happened. Any thoughts on this brilliant angle?
No.
Okay. Glen Gilbertti is on the phone with somebody, and I guess we eventually find out that it's supposed to be Russo. But Glen Gilbertti was angrily telling somebody to get to the show and to hurry up. Mike Sanders mocked the idea of Russo being on their side. AJ Styles and D'Lo Brown were backstage talking in a segment with shitty audio. So Goldilocks, the woman who just got slapped a minute ago, ran up and shoved a microphone between them. And this was live because you could just tell that this was Goldilocks running from the ring to the backstage area to put a mic in their face. AJ and D'Lo informed us without saying these words that wrestling is fake, and they're going to go out there and have a good wrestling match. And they basically say that no one can follow the match they're about to have, which they can say that. I don't know the exact date, but in about 6 weeks, I'd guess, is that AJ Styles D'Lo Brown match that I watched for free on the TNA website in like 2003, 2004. That was like so good that you know, I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest shit ever. And that was the first time I ever saw AJ Styles wrestle. So it's like that is coming up, and hopefully it lives up to my memory of it. But I'm afraid that it won't. Um, so anyway, we get AJ Styles versus D'Lo Brown in a number one contenders match. Don West said he's looking forward to this as much as he's looking forward to Jarrett versus Gilbertti, which proves that he's still the smartest person in the company because even though nobody on the planet Earth would believe him, at least he was smart enough to put over the boss. Um, Jerry, J- okay, no, AJ Styles and D'Lo Brown were a tag team, and now we're splitting them up to have them wrestle each other. So Jerry Jarrett, once upon a time, saw Chris Harris and James Storm have excellent chemistry as opponents and made them a team, and they end up being, a really great tag team. Paul Heyman saw Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge have excellent chemistry as opponents and made them a tag team. And while you can argue how good they were like the most over. They were the first over original ECW act. Was the Public Enemy. Vince Russo lucked almost back asswards into a team with excellent chemistry, and he immediately broke them up. So, anyway, these two immediately show that they, in addition to having great chemistry as a team, they have great chemistry as opponents. D'Lo does a springboard top rope moonsault, which I'm confident he has never done before in his life. AJ goes for a springboard dive outside, but D'Lo caught him and tossed him overhead onto the ramp, and then gave AJ a fucking frog splash off the top rope onto the floor, which, motherfucker, like, I mean, spoiler alert, that shit hurts no matter which side of that frog splash you were on.
Yep.
That is a hard wooden ramp. And, it, it is not fun taking a bump in the ring where there's a thin layer of padding, at least. It is really not fun bumping on wood.
Or concrete
Um,
or whatever's underneath the ring. Because if you saw the padding that TNA has around the ring, it's very small.
to be fair, they were on the ramp, not so much the, ringside area. But at least it's still better than like the ECW mats when they'd have to have mats when they were in commission states.
Yeah.
Like those were just like we're having mats because we have to, but these are really useless.
They're like yoga
Alexis and
mats.
AJ broke out the Pele, and Don West and Tenay pop for it like it's the first time he's done it. Maybe I'm crazy, but didn't he do it like 6 months ago? I could swear this is not the first time he did the Pele.
It's not the first time he's done the Pele, but he breaks out so rarely. Well, at this point in
So
time, he breaks it out rarely. He does it more often, like 2005.
it's going to get to the point, as we all know, this is one of his regular setup moves until, I mean, he gets older. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you when he stopped doing it, but I'm pretty confident he doesn't do it anymore. I haven't, mind you, I don't watch a lot of modern wrestling on TV anymore, so it's like he may do it every week, and I don't fucking know. But Raven, Alexis, and Julio wandered out. D'Lo hit a sit-up powerbomb for a 2 count when the referee disappeared. Allegedly, Julio pulled out the referee, and the referee somehow did not notice. Raven slid into the ring and hit D'Lo with a chair. He also didn't notice the fucking chair in the ring, and did not notice AJ give D'Lo a Styles Clash on the chair for the pin. And then because this is TNA and we can't just have someone win a match, Raven got in the ring and hit AJ with a chair. So who needs a good match when you can have mind-numbing interference constantly? I
Well,
gave that
Raven
a
did
five
say he
point.
was going to do something to ruin this match in like the first interview.
You still could have had a match. Like these two, you could tell they were trying to have like in their minds that promo was basically how they truly felt that like they were going to go out there and A, easily have the match of the night, and B, have a match that Jeff Jarrett and Glen Gilbertti couldn't match on their absolute best day. And while that still ends up being the case, it's not the blow away match that it should have been or could have been. Because like first they only were given like 9 minutes, and then secondly we had this overbooked bullshit finish. 5.0 out of 10.
6.0 out of 10. So
Okay.
we get the hype for Tanay and West. Guess what?
Yeah.
The Anarchy
Well,
Alliance tournament is finally over.
well, that was what I was going to point out, but yes, the stupid tournament, the worst tournament ever, is next ends next week. Which we think I've been ranting about it for a while. I'm going to be ranting more about it next week. But the one that I noted that I don't know, maybe they didn't actually say next week when they said this part, but I was not going to go back and revisit it. I could swear they said that next week is the debut of TNA Talk, and you won't believe who the host of TNA Talk is. And spoiler alert, there is nothing on next week's show called TNA Talk. Just And to be honest, I'm doubting that we ever get a segment called TNA Talk, but I guess we'll see. And then in
Yeah,
addition
because
to that,
it's
mhm,
gone.
yeah. In addition to AMW versus David Young and Tracy, the Sandman is going to wrestle Question Mark in a hard 10 match. And not that Question Mark ends up being like a giant star that's like, oh my God, like these people are idiots for not promoting this a week in advance. I wonder if it's because they didn't know who the hell they were going to use yet, or it was just like, well, maybe the mystery of it would be bigger than saying who it is. Both
Yeah.
are feasible. And then they announced that whoever the world champion is going to have a three-way match with AJ Styles and Raven for the world title. So that's next week on episode 49, the the season finale of TNA, because it's the week before the 1 year anniversary show.
Mhm.
So then we get NWA World Heavyweight Champion Jeff Jarrett versus main event Glen Gilbertti. And the first thing I write, I still can't believe we've been watching a near 3 month main event push for the Disco Inferno. Like I didn't go back. I was going to go back and find the original date that it starts, but it's like whatever day it was that Russo's kids cut that promo on him, the week after is when the main event Glen Gilbertti push starts. So I'm pretty sure that's the beginning of March.
It would be March 12th.
Okay. So we're literally almost 3 months to the day. Like literally, if they had held this match off until next week, it'd have been 3 months almost to the fucking day. So the match begins, and Gilbertti overpowers Jarrett multiple times in the opening minutes of the match. Tenay mentions that Jarrett has been the longest champion of the TNA era, and it helps. Like, here's the thing, and I'm not even saying it helps when you're the owner. I mean, it does, but it helps that Jarrett never really defends the damn belt. Like, remember when Shamrock and Truth were champions? It felt like they were defending the belt every single week. Now, at the same time, neither Shamrock nor the Truth popped the Jeff Jarrett Raven buy rate, but this is also Jarrett's, might even be his first match on this show. I think it's his first match since the Raven match, much less his first title match.
Yeah,
Um,
because he's been injured, and the only time we actually know of Jeff Jarrett wrestling was on the World Wrestling All Stars show.
yeah. Um, So I mean, and even before that, Jarrett at best was defending like once a month because he had that one match with D'Lo at the end of March. He had that random match with AJ Styles in like the middle of February, which I think was the end of the Larry Zbyszko run because I don't remember if Zbyszko was there for the match, but the setup was when Zbyszko was there at least. And then he had a match with Killings right after he won the belt, and then he had remember that random four-way that they had that Raven debuted? Was that for the title?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Because
So I
I think it
think that
was
might be
BG James, Christopher Daniels, and a Harris brother. I don't know.
I just remember the finish is Chris Daniels jumping off the top rope and getting caught with a stroke. Um, so Jarrett's first big offensive move was hitting Glen with a chair in front of the referee. Just a reminder that titles change hands on a disqualification. Mike Sanders ran down to give Jarrett a super kick, and then I wrote for some reason the Harrises climbed the steps outside the SCX locker room to watch from there. So I had actually forgotten until I just read it a minute ago that Mike Sanders interfered in this because during this match, I don't know, a dozen guys are shown watching, which was done in an attempt to like show, okay, look how important this match is. All these people are out to watch it. And so you're expecting that, okay, we're going to have the Raven Jarrett match. We're going to have like 15 people interfering and having a big clusterfuck before the finish. And that's not what happened. But the problem is TNA does this so often that you can't really have this vibe that, oh, we're having a dozen people come out to watch because you automatically like, okay, nothing's going to happen until these dozen people all run at the ring and fight each other. And not that it mattered because, again, they spent 3 months building up Gilbertti as the top contender, and nobody believed that he had a chance to win. He was doing these awful leg submission holds. Um, he was doing an ankle lock that wouldn't have gotten him one stripe on a white belt in karate, and nobody cared because everybody knew that if Jeff Jarrett was losing the title, it was not going to be to the Disco Inferno. Um, By the way, Jared puts on the figure four, and this lets me talk about Mid South again for a second, because Glen Gilbertti immediately turns it over in the way that we've seen everybody ever turn over the figure four. Now, the reason I brought up Mid South is because I don't know if this really was the first time, but when we started watching Mid South in '81, there was a feud with Ted DiBiase as a babyface against Paul Orndorff and Bob Roop. And the storyline was that Bob Roop and Paul Orndorff discovered the counter for the figure four. And the counter was what we just saw and you've seen a billion times in the last 40 years, which is you just turn it over the pile. Um, by the way, Bob Roop, another one of those guys that underappreciate it. Like he was a lot better than people remember him as, and he was a pretty good talker too. But anyway, but now he looks like Ole Anderson. So, by the way, Ron Killings and Conan were two of the people watching, and they were watching from that perch area that Ron Killings was standing at before he left the company for like a month.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice that the truth found a friend to stand with him out in the corner there. Glen Gilbertti grabbed Jarrett's legs when Jarrett went for a kick, and he tried to trip Jarrett, but his legs are too short. So Jarrett hit an enziguri. Um, Gilbertti hit the stunner for a 2 count and then grabbed the chair to Pillmanize the ankle. Referee Rudy Charles, who did not care about Jeff Jarrett using a chair earlier, physically got involved to try to stop Glen from using it. Then Jarrett used a stunner where Glen's jaw hit the chair, and that was okay. Maybe these SCX people have a point about Jeff Jarrett, about the bias towards Jeff Jarrett here.
Oh, without a
The
doubt.
referee got the referee got bumped, and honestly, I don't even know why, because at this point, he has shown that he obviously doesn't care about everyone doing whatever the fuck they want. And then finally, because nobody is a bigger badass than the unathletic dipshit who writes this show, Vince Russo walked in with a baseball bat, and of course, you're supposed to believe he's going to go after Jeff Jarrett, but say it with me, ladies and gentlemen, it's a swerve, bro. He hit Glen Gilbertti with the bat and let Jarrett win because you see, bro, it's a swerve. Now, I'm not saying this was the greatest match of all time. I'm not saying this would have been 10 out of 10. I'm not even saying it would have been 6 out of 10. I think I would have, like, if this match had just happened and they had a finish, 4.5, 5 out of 10. It was a perfectly acceptable match, and they both tried and did their best. Russo making sure he had to write himself as the biggest badass in the match, which, by the way, this will make even less sense next week. That drops the rating of the match down to a 2.0 out of 10. Because, yes, ladies and gentlemen, the finish of matches matter.
Swerve, bro. I gave it a 6 out of 10, bro.
Yeah, I
Because I
think
was
you're
honestly
drunk.
shocked. I mean, we all of the NWA title matches that we've seen had a lot more interference than what we got in this match, so it was kind of refreshing.
The issue with it, again, it's like if we didn't have a dozen people standing around, I'd have been like, okay, I see that point. Even with dipshit, booking himself to be the final boss, I'm like, okay, I see your point. But the problem is when you have a dozen people standing around, nobody expects a finish until the dozen people have a giant fight. And then the dozen people, like, I don't know where the hell they went. I think they all just left because Russo walked unimpeded into the ring and then back out of the ring. And so where the hell did everyone else go? Who knows? That's not important, I guess.
Well, he entered from the sex locker room side, so they were thinking, hey, he's going to belt Jeff Jarrett and bring the belt home to Sports Entertainment Extreme. Nope, didn't happen.
If you think I'm complaining now, you just wait for next week's show. And spoiler alert, next week's show is a better show. And I'm going to be doing a lot more complaining then. But that was the end of the show. And by the way, you remember a few weeks ago when I came up with the theory that, hey, if I watch an hour, then do something else, and then come back and watch the other hour, it might lead for a better show. I do that twice, and if that led to two shows being better than what they would have had I watched 2 consecutive hours, I feel bad for the venom and rage that would have come out of my mouth this week and next week. Because Jesus Christ, I wasn't enjoying the shows even with the break. Um, so match quality, because again, I did not rate those Asylum Alliance matches. I don't care, and this is probably going to contribute to uh, the I don't say high match quality rating because it's really not high, but match quality 3.75. Overall enjoyment. By the way, I should point out because it always sounds like these three numbers are all together. I do overall enjoyment and future build first, and then I go back and average out the match rating. And it ends up being a mostly wacky coincidence that the match rating is usually right around whatever I say the other two ratings are. Overall enjoyment 3.5 out of 10 because at least it's the end of the Glen Gilbertti main event push. But of course, yet again, the main event wrestlers are not good enough to win matches without the help of the man with the biggest ego in all of pro wrestling. Future build 3 out of 10 because at least the worst tournament ever ends next week, giving us an overall rating of a 3.42.
You confused me with all those numbers.
Overall rating 3.42. I honestly got to go back, for the 1 year anniversary show. I got to go back and see out of 49 shows because by the end of next week's show, we'll be at 49 episodes. I got to go back and see how many of those 49 shows got an average rating of a 5.0 or higher. Because
None.
I'm going to bet, no, there was a couple. I'm going to bet it's less than 5, which really tells you something. Because if I were to sit here and do similar ratings for, Mid South, I'm going to say every week is, probably no lower than a 6, especially once we hit Bill Dundee taking over as Booker at the end of '83. Because Mid South is on fucking fire. And, you know, that's not TNA. All right.
No, TNA is
So
on
any
fire. I have the shirt that proves it. That says TNA is on fire.
The closest they
Yeah,
came to being on fire is when they set the building on fire.
yeah, that's why they made the shirt. That's stupid.
I I somehow have no memory of that shirt. And I remember when WWE had the shirt that said Big Show with an arrow pointing towards his penis. Um,
Stupidest merch comes out for wrestling.
or remember APA's always pounding ass?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I get what they were going for, but that's not what your immediate thought is going to be upon seeing that.
Mm-mm.
So any final thoughts on this amazing fucking show?
At least things are happening. I mean, thank God we got rid of the Glen Gilbertti stuff. And I'm kind of excited and eagerly awaiting Raven Styles Jarrett triple threat. So there's potential for a good show next week.
Okay, we won't break people's hearts yet. Yeah. So that's the TNA show for the week. You want to plug anything else you're involved in?
Yeah, my phone. I'm getting my phone because I'm leaving. I'm going to have dinner at Pequot's because I'm in Chicago, baby.
Really?
I'm on vacation
I thought are you talking about next week or now?
now.
Like shoot now? Like May 31st at 9:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time?
No, the Wednesday that we air this.
Okay. Well, you got to say that part because, we don't like to confuse the fans too much.
Well, you're the one who always said this is live at around 9 in the morning or 9 at night or something like that.
Well, I usually post it at midnight, so spoiler alert, even though I typically am just starting to lay down at midnight, we are not doing this goddamn show at midnight Eastern Standard Time ever. Um, I would probably not be able to fall asleep due to getting too full of anger and vitriol talking about TNA. But anywho, that's gonna do it for this week's show. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.